Welcome to Going Global. In this video, we're going to talk about what to keep in mind while recruiting local employees in a foreign country. Whether you are starting a new business abroad or whether you are opening an office overseas, consider the basic tips provided here. In this video, we will discuss local labor law and regulations compliance, how recruiting websites can vary by country, what to consider while hiring a recruiting company, some labor force characteristics that can turn into challenges, and the risk of unintentionally damaging your company reputation. But first, a quick legal disclaimer. The information contained in this video is provided for informational purposes only. You should not act or refrain from acting on the basis of any content included in this video without seeking legal or other professional advice. Okay, let's go. Well, the three rules for local labor law and regulations are compliance, compliance, compliance. It is key that you understand what you can and cannot do in a recruiting process. In some cases, you also need to understand what you must do, what you are required by law to do. Don't assume that you can simply apply the same recruiting process that you use in your home country. No matter how successful and effective that process is in your home country, that process might violate local laws or local practices and damage your company reputation in the foreign country. And we cannot stress this enough. It is highly recommended to have the support of a local lawyer or law firm and/or a local accountant or accounting company. Do not simply replicate the same contract standards, policies, and practices used in your home country. You should get them reviewed by professionals that know and understand the laws and practices of the particular country. Now, let's look at some examples of what can, cannot, or must be done in specific countries. In the United States, for instance, there is something called equal employment opportunity. In virtually all American job postings, you'll see an equal employment opportunity policy statement, declaring that the hiring company provides equal employment opportunities to all employees and applicants for employment, regardless of race, color, religion, age, sex, national origin, and other characteristics protected by federal, state, or local laws. So, in the United States, you cannot, for example, require that the applicants be female, unless you have a business necessity for that. Business necessity is a legal concept, and you will need a really good lawyer to sustain that case. Now let's see an example of what must be done. In Brazil, depending on the size of your local workforce and on other conditions, you might be required by law to hire persons with disabilities and/or apprentices. There is a similar rule in Colombia, requiring that companies hire apprentices. However, the definition of apprentice is different in Brazil and Colombia. Once again, the fact that you have a successful apprentice program in Colombia does not mean that you can simply replicate that same program in Brazil. Now more examples regarding selection tools. This might amaze you, but in Colombia, it is allowed to perform a visita domiciliaria, which means home visit. In the visita domiciliaria, the job applicant is visited by a recruiting professional at his home, and the objective is to confirm the applicant's address, social status, and family environment. In South Korea, resumes may include the photo, age, the height, and the weight of the applicant. Very useful, right, if you want to hire someone that is fit. Now, regarding recruiting websites. This might surprise you, but LinkedIn does not rule the world. LinkedIn is an excellent tool in the United States, Brazil, or Panama, but might not be the preferred recruiting website in other countries. If you are recruiting in Colombia, you might want to use elempleo.com. In Chile, trabajando.com. In Germany, Xing. And in Australia, the Seek website, to name a few. Besides using websites, you might want to hire a recruiting company to help you hire your first team of employees. You may hire a local or a global recruiting company. The advantages of the local recruiting firm are that it might better know the local market and might provide you with more realistic expectations on the time required to attract talent. The local company might also give you better insights of the total rewards, that is, salary, benefits, and perks, offered by your local competitors. On the other hand, you might already have a global contract with a big international recruiting firm, so you might want to stick to that. However, global recruiting companies might be more expensive than the local ones. Also, make sure that your global partner is not actually subcontracting the recruiting process to a local company and only being the middleman. Now, regarding labor force characteristics, you might be extra careful if the population of the country is relatively small if compared with your hiring needs. Panama, for instance, has a population of around 4 million people. That is much less than the population of New York City. And among those 4 million people are babies and children who do not work. There are adults that do not have the skills that you need. So, your applicant pool can really get really small. You might also want to pay attention to the population distribution. It might be easier to hire employees in some specific cities, and this could be also a criteria for defining where you will establish your business. For instance, in Brazil, if you need employees that are able to speak Korean, Chinese, or Japanese, you should definitely recruit in São Paulo City. Finally, be careful not to damage your company image. To avoid that, your local partners might support you. Be careful, for instance, with wording. You might be fluent in Spanish. You might have already recruited in Chile, but this does not mean that you can use the same job postings in Panama. To give an example, the word liquidación in Chile is related to payroll. In Panama, liquidación means termination. So, a person that does liquidación in Chile has a different job than a person who does liquidación in Panama. Monitor application reactions. If it feels that the reactions are not as good as expected, revise your recruiting process. And remember, you might be the biggest employer in your home country. You might be the dream job there, but you might be totally unknown in the new country. So, be humble.